KSR here to get you ready for Kentucky versus South Carolina Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. on the SEC Network at Kroger Field. Before the action gets going, we're joined by Gamecock Central's Wes Mitchell to preview this matchup where South Carolina, they're a little fresh, right? They played two non-conference games, hung a few 50 burgers out, and they got an extra day to start that Thursday. Wes, I'm curious from your point of view, you're closely covering the Gamecocks down in Columbia. Do you think there's any inherent advantage to having not only the two conference games, but an extra day or two off before this matchup?
Yeah, I do, Nick. I think you look at South Carolina, they were going through a little bit of what Kentucky's going through right now from an injury standpoint, coming off of the Arkansas game, especially, they lost two guys for the year that they were really counting on, two starters, and they were kind of feeling their way through what that was going to mean, I think. And then coming off those two SEC games, they just had a bunch of guys that were banged up. A lot of those guys either played like one of the two games or set out both the games, actually. So I think more than anything, this has just been good for them to get right and sort of just get healthy and let some guys that are younger go play and just let some guys that are older kind of sit out and get back close to 100%, I think.
And really, I think the biggest development over those two games has been the emergence of Marshawn Lloyd. Carolina's got a running game back. What has that done to help their offense, and what kind of player is Lloyd?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we've all been looking at this offense saying, what do you do well? Like, what is your identity going to be? And, Marshawn Lloyd is a kid that came in. He was a 5-star guy, incredibly highly recruited. Then he got hurt. He played last year, but he just did not seem like the same player, honestly. And I think what we have seen this year, especially the last two games, they've been able to give him some room to actually operate and got him in space a little bit. And that's where the explosiveness, the ability to make guys miss. He's not the biggest guy, but he does run with some power, with some sort of tackle breaking ability, especially when he gets out into the open field. And, he's such a good kid that has just sort of been an example, I think, for how to carry yourself for the rest of the team. So I think he has kind of become one of those guys that the team feeds off of a little bit when he gets going. And, I think finding a way to get him in space, whether that's in the passing game, which they've actually done quite a bit of this year, or just traditional running game, is going to be a key, not just this week, but probably for this offense moving forward.
The player that people love to hate on, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was that QB1 show or what it was about Spencer Rattler, but he just seems to it's just a firestorm around him, right? But it was a huge addition for South Carolina this offseason, and so far it hasn't. It's they aren't exactly lighting up teams through the air. The 4 touchdowns, 7 picks. So what's kind of been is the honeymoon over for Rattler? What's the reception like for Spencer Rattler? What's his expectations among the South Carolina fan base?
The fans have been, I would say, pretty patient with Rattler, and he came in with such attention and hype, and he brought so much attention to the program. I mean, this was the guy that I would say started the momentum this offseason for South Carolina, for them to be able to land multiple other transfers as well that have sort of were supposed to give a big boost to this roster this year. And, I think you look first couple of games, it was just apparent to me that this is someone who played in a much different scheme than what South Carolina is running. And their philosophy is kind of similar to Kentucky. It's very pro style, huddle up, under center, play action, completely different than what he was doing at Oklahoma. So it's kind of been one of those things, Nick, where you can see the natural talent. I mean, when you see him in person on Saturday, you're going to be like, okay, like the arm is there. Like it is apparent. The ball just pops out of his hand. You can see why he was the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country. But as we've seen, it's just taken some time for the timing with the receivers, all the different footwork that goes into this offense. I think they have steadily tried to kind of pare down what they do on offense and really focus on what he does well, what Marshawn Lloyd does well. And we've seen it be much cleaner the last 2 weeks, but, there's that massive caveat there that it's against much lesser competition. So I think a lot of people around here are very curious to see what does the offense look like as they enter back into SEC play? What does Rattler look like? Several of those interceptions have been like not on him at all. He threw two the last game. It's like right off a receiver's hands. So
just dropping it into the other teams. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, it's been a mixed bag, I think. And we've said all year long, like this next stretch of games is going to like tell the story of this season for South Carolina. I think that's kind of the same for Rattler. Like these next few games are going to kind of start to tell the story of what this has really looked like for him as well.
This game, it's such an odd rivalry, if there is, because like neither team would call the other one a rival, but there is feel like there's extra juice in this. For the longest time, South Carolina would just beat in Kentucky's teeth year after year after year. I think they won something like 14 straight, something crazy. Now Kentucky's won 7 of 8. Is this what's the confidence? What's the vibe? I hate using that word. It's such a boring word. But like, how are fans feeling? Is this like we're going to win this game? We have to win this game. How do they perceive this upcoming matchup with Kentucky?
Well, all offseason, it was like from a Carolina fan perspective, we have to win this game. But it's been like that, honestly, the last, I don't know how many off seasons, because a lot of these people, like, I mean, so I'm 36 years old. As I was like growing up, like high school and then college, living in this state, it was during that stretch where South Carolina just found a way to beat Kentucky. And a lot of them were close games. They were like highly contested. South Carolina just always won. And then we have entered this stretch, like you said, last 8 years, most of those games, have been fairly close, and Kentucky has found a way to just beat South Carolina. I've never seen a series like that just completely flip the other way. So it's gone from, we have to beat Kentucky. But right now, I wouldn't say that there's a ton of confidence from the fan base the week of the game, like going into it. There's not a ton of confidence in that happening, because I think Carolina fans are just a little bit down right now. I think most people would have thought 3-2 at this point. Pretty realistic, right? But it's been more about how it has happened, just getting blown out by Georgia, and really not. The Arkansas game was somewhat close at times, but Arkansas sort of controlled most of that game. So fan base is a little bit down right now and is just worried that Rodriguez is going to run all over the South Carolina defense,
which they've seen a few times before. I know as we're speaking right now, Thursday afternoon, we don't have the latest on Will Levis, and obviously if he doesn't play, that greatly changes the dynamic of this football game. You can throw back up in, and he can just be interception heavy, and South Carolina can roll out here with an easy win. But all things being equal, right? Like, let's say Levis plays. What is the recipe for a South Carolina win at Kentucky? What do they have to do to be able to win this football game?
Yeah, I hate to just give like that blanket answer that's the answer for every football game that's ever played. It's like, if you stop the run and you run the football, it's like, that's a great key to victory. But, I was actually looking on KSR at y'all's South Carolina breakdown, and I saw that success rate stat for South Carolina's defense, and it's 117 in the country. And I'm not a huge like analytics or deeper stats guy at all, but success rate, is a pretty good one. And you look at Carolina, they've struggled to get teams like off schedule as far as down and distance. And I guess success rate is like sort of the stat that perfectly represents, are you off schedule? Are you on schedule as an offense? Are you keeping them off schedule as a defense? And when I saw that, I was just like, wow, that explains what the eye test has showed me about Carolina this year. So I look at it like, all right, is it 2nd and 9 and 3rd and 7 for Kentucky's offense, or is it 2nd and 4 and 3rd and 2 all game for Kentucky's offense? And that's probably going to be the key to the game. Obviously, you look at on the other side, can they get Marshawn Lloyd going? Like I said earlier, some of that has been in the passing game. I don't know if it necessarily has to be Lloyd carries the ball 20 times and rushes for 115 yards. I think it's just more about finding any way against this Kentucky defense that the offensive coaches at Carolina have a ton of respect for, Can you find any way to break off a big play and sort of put him in a position to do so? Because Kentucky just doesn't give up a bunch of big plays. So I think that's going to be a key. I think it's a grinded out type game.
Yeah.
I've said that all week. If Levis isn't in the game, then even more so. I think this could be like one of those 21-17 even type games. It's just kind of a little bit old school. Both sides are going to huddle up. Both sides are going to let the play clock run down. They're going to shift in motion. Neither side will get as many plays as most college offenses get in today's ball, I feel like.
Yeah. Could be a nice night for the under. Heck, we might get out of that press box before midnight. They really slow it down and grind it out. But I'm with you, though, Wes. This feels like no matter what the case is, Levis or not, this is going to be a kind of grinded out within one or two scores most of the time, because that's just how these teams have played each other. No matter what the disparities are, you think going into the game, it typically ends up being a fun, close, one of those games that you're biting your nails and all the way down to the end. So, Wes, appreciate you joining us. Safe travels up here to Lexington, and we'll see you Saturday night at Kroger Field.
All right, thanks, Nick. Have a good one. All right.